Everybody. So I'm here to do a quick video just to recap the Claudette Sorel piano competition. There were a couple of things that I wanted to get across to you before I forget. But I want to start with, of course, congratulating Lucas for beautiful performance and the other. We have 6 winners, other 6 small awards that were given in the competition for wonderful performances, and I think I speak for all the judges when I say we were stunned by some of the playing. It was really on such incredibly high level. It was very, very moving for us as the judges to listen to you guys playing. The reason why I'm here is because I felt that there were some issues that kept repeating, either in the preliminary stage, in the recordings that we received, or also on stage. And I wanted to sort of make this video just so it's out there, and for those of you who are considering maybe applying next year, or for you competitors, maybe this would be helpful for future competition, for future auditions, just to bear the following things in mind. Okay, so without further ado, number one is, I don't remember, what's number one? Number one is the quality of the recording. Now, granted, not everybody has thousands of dollars to invest in a professional recording and to go into a studio to have a nice piano. I mean, that's all understandable. But what you have to keep in mind is especially when you're going into an audition or a competition setting, other people are sending their best recordings. So to send something that you recorded in your home on an untuned piano, when that is going to be compared with somebody who recorded it in a professional studio, you are at a disadvantage point. So you just have to keep that in mind, that if you have an access to a place where they have a nice piano, maybe you should call that person and ask for a favor, or maybe you should think maybe your aunt has a nice piano that you can record on. Don't think that just because you have a piano at home, I'm not saying this right. Try to find the best possible location to have that audition tape made. It's important, it makes a difference, and especially when you send recordings from live performances where it's audience noise, when the camera is out of focus, it makes the evaluation process for us that is very, very difficult. So I'm just putting it out there. Again, it's not a question of spending more money, but more of a question of, are you putting your best foot forward, and is that something that you think would be competitive against other talented pianists? So that's point number one. Point number two, the contrast in the program. This is critical. When we started the competition, one of the most important things for me to do was to keep the repertoire choice open and without any restrictions. So for young pianists like a winner, there is an opportunity to pick a piece that maybe nobody knows of, and then present that as the recital, or to choose a compilation of composers that you're passionate about, let's say Bartók and Bach, and sort of create a recital program based on that contradiction or on that contrast. The point was not to have you play the same composer over and over, either loud and fast, or or the opposite of, obviously. What I think we were all, as the judges, we were all commenting on is that we were lacking contrast in the program, either stylistically or tempi, or even sometimes in dynamics. And I think the next point will push that point further. But just when you're thinking about choosing repertoire, always think of contrast. Always think of like what things can I present that I love, that actually have contrast, and then in the 15 minutes that you're going to play are going to showcase your versatility, sort of the gamut of what you're capable of doing. Presenting just one style or one speed or one dynamic is just not satisfying, and it makes the judging process very, very difficult, because we have to compare a monothematic, if you will, idea from one performer with somebody who is giving us a much wider range of options. So again, you might err on choosing the piece you're passionate about, like a winner did, and that's a risk you can take. Or think about creating a program that has a lot of contrast in it, either with the style or with the tempo, or obviously with dynamics. Which leads me to the next point. Loud and fast isn't the point. So let me Let me explain. We heard a lot of very virtuosic music, a lot of very loud dynamics, and again, not enough contrast. And I understand why one would think that going into a competition, you better choose repertoire that is loud and fast. You want to show your capabilities, your technique, your sound. That's great. Pick one piece that shows that. But if your entire repertoire ends up being stuff that is very, very fast and very, very loud, it sort of makes us raise an eyebrow. Is that all you can do? Again, it makes listening to that program very difficult, not satisfying. I mean, I don't want to say that as judges we can play fast and loud too, but we can. So it's not impressive. I know that it's maybe counterintuitive to think that way, but playing loud and fast has its limits. Yes, you want to showcase your technique and we want to hear it, but it's not the only thing. We want to hear your soul. We want to hear your imagination. We want to hear the color palette that you are capable of creating. Not only loud, but maybe also soft. Maybe also some impressionism. Maybe make a thing out of playing mezzo forte for a whole piece. I'm being funny, but you understand what I mean. The sort of the conclusion that we came from the competition with was that everybody wanted to be very impressive, and in that process they actually hurt themselves because there was no contrast. All we got to hear was loud and fast and more loud and fast, and for contrast we heard loud and fast. You getting my point? So again, this is my subjective opinion, and I believe my colleagues as well, but think about that before you program. One piece should show that. How loudly you can play, how beautiful the sound, hopefully, you're making when you're playing loudly, and to showcase your technique, but not an entire program. Yeah, this is a funny one that I put in. We know the text, so don't fake it. It kind of goes without saying, but if you have some difficult passages, or you didn't really learn all the notes, or you're futzing with the rhythms in a Beethoven sonata, my suggestion to you is don't do it. We know the text. There are very rare cases where you're playing a contemporary piece that the jury will not know the text, but overall, 99% of the time, the repertoire that you're playing, the jury knows what you're playing. Don't futz with it. That makes you look not so good. Okay? Yeah, this is a great point. What are you trying to communicate? So I think the people who were successful, or the auditions that we heard that were successful, sort of communicated who the pianist was really clearly. Either what they love to play, or their sound, or their charisma, or their personality. So before you choose the repertoire, before you send us that, just spend a little bit of time thinking, like, what do I want to communicate through these pieces? Do I want to communicate my love for Bach? Do I want to communicate that I'm really invested in contemporary music? Do I want to communicate that I'm all about Rachmaninoff and sort of the virtuosic pianism? What am I about? And just make sure that your program says that. If your program ends up being this generic, Beethoven, Bach, Chopin, it just doesn't do your service. You want to distinguish yourself from everybody else who is entering by making a stand for the repertoire you believe in. So one of the competitors played a beautiful Messiaen and a really difficult etude by Debussy. That made him stand out. Another competitor chose to play a piece by Lowell Lieberman, The Gargoyles. That made him stand out. So think about those pieces that you really love and that are different and are not, let's say, mainstream repertoire, that will really represent you in the best possible light. Yes, the pedal is a thing, right? Mostly what happens when we're nervous, you put the foot down and you hope for the best. And I think we all commented about how we were surprised that people's ears didn't tell them to get their foot off the pedal. So now let me backtrack. I know what happens when we get nervous, and I also know what happens when we play on a piano that we don't know. Nerves hit and you go, okay, you know what? I'm just going to put that down and hope for the best, especially at the beginning of the piece. But what that communicates to us is that your use of the pedal is not a conscious choice. And again, especially in a competition situation, you want to distinguish yourself as somebody who knows what they're doing with their feet as well as with their hands. So maybe you need to clearly notate in your score how you're using the pedal and when you're using the pedal. By pedal, I don't only mean the right one, I also mean the left one. And the left one is even more dangerous because on a piano that you don't know, you really can't predict what the left pedal is going to do. On some pianos, it's wonderful. On some pianos, not so much. Think about it. It was a big point in the competition when some people pressed the left pedal and it completely changed their sound. And again, I'm just going to put it out there. Think before you press the pedals and make sure that it is what you want. And when you don't know the piano, be even more cautious with using both pedals. Okay, hopefully that was clear. Yeah, time your program, people, especially the times in between pieces. I think it's critical that when you come on stage, you're not nervous about, oh, they're going to stop me in the middle, or sort of not knowing how you are timing yourself between the pieces. So again, some competitors chose to present more music, which is totally okay, and they left to us, the jury, the option of stopping them or not stopping them. But I think it's a decision that you want to make for yourself. I'm not sure that that's a decision that I would want a jury to make for me when I go on stage. So time the length of the piece, then think about how much time you need in between pieces to rest and sort of to recenter and to think about the next piece. And then make sure that the total sort of, the total is still a little bit under what the time limitation is. We had a few competitors who went over that I had to stop, and believe me, there's nothing worse than stopping somebody right before the coda of Chopin's Fourth Ballade. It's not something that we want to do. We actually really wanted to hear the coda, but the time was over. So think about that. Don't go to competition without making sure that you know exactly what your timing is, not what the timing on Amazon says or on YouTube, but what your timing of the piece is. And that's it. I think those are some of the important points that I wanted to get across to you. And of course, if you have questions or comments, or you want to debate some of this, I'll be happy to debate it with you. Leave a comment below and we'll talk. And thank you to all the competitors. I want to thank my colleagues, the judges, for doing such a brilliant work. Believe it or not, we wrote personal comments to everybody who entered, both for the preliminaries and for the finalists, because we really believe that that feedback is what's going to make this experience different and enrich your knowledge of piano and what it is to play in a competition. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below, and I'll talk to you next time.